Hi, my name's Bill Murphy, and I'd like to spend some time with you today to talk about Lyme, New Hampshire, the Congregational Church, and the area surrounding our community. My wife and I came to the Upper Valley, about 60 years ago, me to teach social studies at Hanover High School, and to learn a little bit more about what I considered the disappearing culture of the Yankees in New England. I've enjoyed my teaching and also my learning about the people and in Lyme about the growth of our church. One of the first experiences I had was a conversation on the lawn with a friend, Greg Dimmick. He was a student, went on to be a preacher, and certainly was an authority on Lyme. And he said, "You know, Murph, one of the things that bothers me are these new people who are coming to town to take over the key roles." And I said, he said, "Oh, no, not you, Murph." And then I ticked off people who had been here 30, 40 years. And he said, "Yeah, it's these new people." And it took me a moment to realize that his family had been here since back in 1760s. I can sort of picture in some way the Native Americans sitting around the campfire at a post pond saying, "Oh, here come those new people again, and what's going to happen to the neighborhood?" Actually, they probably had left by the time the first settlers arrived in the Upper Valley. French and Indian War probably moved them out, and here was an open space for an overpopulated southern New England to move up the Connecticut River Valley, the main highway for that time. Benning Wentworth thought it would be a great opportunity, one, for him to make money, and two, for him to solidify New Hampshire's hold on the Upper Valley. So he chartered towns throughout our area, not having any idea that there would be a New Hampshire and Vermont. He just chartered towns, whether it was Lyme or whether it was Thetford. 1761, Lyme was chartered, and the people came, and one of the first things that they thought about after clearing land was that they needed to have a church. And so approximately 20 people gathered together to sign a covenant, to join together in creating a new church in Lyme. In 1771, they started the covenant. 1781, they built the first church, approximately where we're sitting today at the meeting house. But they had great designs for making things larger, and so they moved that building down to what is now Stella's, and they wanted to build a new church here with the pastor, William Conant, who would serve them for so many years. They were booming times, or growing times anyhow, in Lyme, and the people had great hopes for the community, to the point where they felt the church meeting house of 1781 was not going to be large enough, so they decided to build another one. And as I have said, they moved the previous one down the common to what is now Stella's, or used to be Nichols Hardware. It was in the second floor. They had to agree that they would have it available for town meetings, and that was the case up until 1919, 1920. But then we had to build a new meeting house here. And how are you going to build that meeting house? Well, first of all, you're going to have to get some money. And the way they did it was to auction off pews. So if you wanted a prime pew, you better be bidding high. And the prime pews, contrary to sometimes today, were down front. And so the bidding started, and Dr. Hamilton, who lived in the house at the end of the common, he bid the highest amount and got the best. And then they auctioned off all the rest of the pews, and they had the money in order to get a builder. So they had another auction, but this time it was reverse. And the reverse auction was, I can build it for this amount. Then somebody else would say, oh, I can build it for less than that. And so the bidding continued until John Thompson Jr., a 25-year-old from down on the River Road, said that he could build it. And people wondered, why did he feel that he could do it with not really very much building experience? It turns out that his three great-great-great-great-grandfather was instrumental in helping to build the meeting house down in Plymouth. And he sort of felt that he was destined to do that. And he did. People said, you're not going to make money on it. And they were right, he didn't. But if you come and take a look at the structure that is here now, it's very, very impressive. It was told to build on the model of Dartmouth College. I don't think there were a lot of blueprints, but there was a common form that seemed to be spreading around New England. So we had a large meeting house, the pulpit at the end, up a circular set of stairs, balconies on three sides, the floor at the base where you walked in through one of three doors. And at the same time that he was building that meeting house, his dad was building the horse sheds that are next to the church, and he made money on his proposal. John Thompson, he later moved on, but his memorial in this meeting house lasts. And so it was moving towards the middle of the 19th century. The people began to talk about the space and utilization of the space. And like churches at all times, they formed a committee and they decided that they would divide the meeting house in half by adding a second floor. And the second floor would have eliminate the balconies on two sides and keep a singing gallery in the back. The floor would have two aisles rather than the central aisle of the original configuration on the first floor, and the pastor would come down out of the pulpit and the pulpit window would be eliminated. And why exactly they did that, we can hypothesize that perhaps it was because of the Sunday school movement, that it would give you more flexibility and space so that you could have Sunday school going on downstairs while you were preaching upstairs. You could have the church hall being used for gatherings for that good old church supper. And I continue to refer to the front room as the library room downstairs because the lending library was relocated there for a few years. And the church continued to grow, and the issue at the time was slavery, of course, and the Civil War. And when the Civil War did come, Lyme responded wholeheartedly with many of her young people going off to war. Unfortunately, there is a story about a gathering in Virginia, I believe, where one of the Lyme soldiers got sick, and soon thereafter another got sick, and the other friend who was with them came to visit, and he got sick. And over the course of time, the three soldiers died. So they sent the three soldiers back home, and they put them in the boxes, in the coffins, and sent them up. But by some sort of mistake, they ended up in Canaan. And they ended up there on the weekend, and the station master did not want them sitting there over the course of the weekend. So what he did was, is somebody going to Lyme? And said, yes. Does somebody know where the Grant House? Yes. So they took them to the Grant house on Sunday morning, which is the house sitting on the knoll on the East Thetford Road. And because everybody was in church, they left the coffins on the porch. Afterwards, the people went home. The unfortunate thing is no one told the Grants that their son, their nephew, and the daughter's fiancé had died. And they arrived home to find the coffins on the porch. 3 friends, united in life, died in the war, and this meeting house experienced one of the largest congregations, one of the largest attendance that it ever has. And the 3 are buried in the cemetery adjacent to the meeting house.